Thank you so much for staying with us. We're still on Sunrise Daily. Your daily dose of sunshine would seem like that's a little bit distorted this morning, as according to information available to us that the cardinal residence of late former President Muhammadu Buhari this morning, the atmosphere there is calm, no presence of sympathizers we hear, and only security operatives are seen mounting surveillance around the house that leads to his residence right there. Don't forget that the former president had moved from Daura to Kaduna just about 2 years after he left office. And the late former president had moved to Kaduna from Daura on February 27, almost 2 years, 27 this year, almost 2 years after leaving office. It was from there that he went to London for medical treatment, and we heard from our previous guest that it wasn't really supposed to be a big deal. But these are visuals from Kaduna around his residence at this time. More tributes have continued to pour in about former president, late President Buhari. This one is from Mr. Babatunde Raji Fashola, who's a former governor of Lagos State and one of the ministers that worked quite well under the President Buhari government. He worked as Minister of Works, Housing, and this is part of what he said, is that the former president had a deep yearning for a society governed by rules, not by impulse. This found early expression in his War Against Indiscipline campaign, a campaign often misread as rigid, but rooted in a desire to rebuild a citizenry of order, courtesy, and civic responsibility. He goes on to say that he felt privileged to have served in his cabinet, first in the Consolidated Ministry of Power, Works and Housing, and later in the restructured Ministry of Works and Housing. President Buhari was not a man to micromanage. Instead, he gave you the space and the trust to deliver. With that trust, however, came the highest expectation of discipline, results, and honesty. He concludes by saying, adieu, may Gaskia, as you were fondly referred to, Nigeria salutes you. That's a tribute from Mr. Babatunde Raji Fashola, former Minister of Works, Housing and Power in Nigeria under the government of President Muhammadu Buhari. Right now, we have another conversation with Farouk Aliu, who is one of the allies of late President Buhari and a former minority leader, House of Representatives. He joins us from Jigawa State. Thank you so much for joining us this morning, Mr. Aliu.
Good morning, Nigeria.
Yeah. Well, this must hit quite low, Mr. Aliu. The whole nation is mourning, and it can only be left in the realm of imagination how it must hit those of you who really worked closely with him and related with him.
Yeah, that's true. That's true. You know, this kind of thing comes normally with shock, grief, you know, but then as people of faith, like all Muslims know, it's in the books that every soul must test death, and that from God we came and unto him we shall return. So it's part of life that the day, you know, there are two times, that one, the day you are delivered, and the next day, the day you die. So late Muhammad Buhari has passed through those phases, and we hope and pray that God will accept him in good faith. God will reward him the good deeds he did, and the not so good ones, or those that some infringement here and there, may God forgive him.
You know, one of the information that is making the rounds now, Mr. Aliu, is that one where some people are saying that maybe he was really aware that he ruffled quite a number of feathers and he's asking people to forgive him and all of that. One of the impressions that creates, Mr. Aliu, for a good number of people would be perhaps the office of leader, the position of a leader, and the office of president or head of state, whichever one it was, must have been a lot more trying than people were aware of when he was in office.
Well, absolutely. I can, first of all, tell you that each and every one of us must have had, done something wrong to somebody, but more so if you are a leader. And also, I can confirm and confess to you that truly, when politicians are campaigning, there are certain things that you assume, certain things you don't know, certain things that you thought were not done right. And when you get there, by the time the facts stare you at the face, then you will start realizing that, well, probably the person before you wasn't extremely all along wrong. So, of course, in managing people and so on, resources of the country, diversity, there are people certainly that will feel aggrieved. And so, whether he thinks that he did that or he didn't, he knew. He knows. All of us, you and I, all of us know that you cannot come to this world and go out, pass without doing anything that's wrong to yourself, to God, to the people. So it's all part of life that, yeah, you should ask for forgiveness.
There are some thoughts that crossed my mind, Mr. Aliu, about the former president. One of the questions that I was asking, what are some of the decisions that he took or some of the interventions that he took, while maybe as head of state or as, civilian president, that many people don't even know how much it rescued Nigeria or helped or harmed. There are those who would not forget the fact that he interjected the Second Republic, but it was at a time when the political class was, for the want of a better word, running riots. Civil society organizations were all over the place. And it was about that time that he came up with what Mr. Babatunde Fashola also referenced, which is the War Against Indiscipline initiative of his government of the day. There are quite a number of things that must have been done, which are usually misrepresented or misunderstood. Is there a lesson there for leadership?
Yeah, let me give you a classical example. You remember back in the days when he was a military ruler, that's the days of war against indiscipline. There were three persons that were executed: Bayo Ojulope, Bartholomew Owo, and one other person, I can't remember the name. They were executed for drugs, and I think one or two of them were executed, with a retroactive law, which they committed the offense before the decree was promulgated. I remember very well, I asked him that. He said that, yes, that he was in Ilorin on a visit when they brought the death warrant. But God knows his intention was to cleansing Nigeria of drugs at that time. And if you remember, I mean, for those of us that were around, definitely this country was going down in terms of drugs and so on. And what's happening today? So if that kind of thing has continued, probably Nigeria would have been a better place in terms of drugs and so on. So these are some of the things that, as a leader, there are certain things that you will take, and people may misunderstand, but it's for the good of the people, for the good of society. These kind of things and so on. And then, you also remember he was asked that if you come back, what will you do differently? He said that a lot of things he will do them the same, because at the circumstances when things were brought before you, you do what you think is right. And honestly, I can tell you that he's one man who will never ever do anything that he thinks is wrong. So whatever decision he took at the time he took those decisions, I am sure between him and his God, he thought that was the best thing to do. And then it's for the good of the people. So, it's part of governance, certainly. There are some consequences that, will come with the actions you take or you have not taken.
And it's quite a huge conversation here, Mr. Aliu. Now, but can you reference any lesson in his life for politicians in particular? Because of course he died as a politician himself, and knowing what you know, and all of the grand swell towards another election now, what would be for you some of the iconic lessons that everyone should draw from the life and times of Muhammadu Buhari, be it as a statesman or as a politician?
Yeah, you see, part of the things that we learned from him, which I think politicians should continue to do, if you believe in your God and in your people, persevere, be patient, be dogged. Because I remember in 2003, I started with him from day one. In 2003, 2007, 2011, there was no state we did not go to. In fact, 95% of where we visited, we drove. We went by road, crisscrossed this country, and all it was in belief that, look, if you want to govern people, you should get to them, you should visit them. So politicians should learn that, look, if you believe in something, go for it. If you definitely think what you're going to do is for the good of your people, and ultimately it's God Almighty, you should go ahead and do it. So perseverance, doggedness, persistence, and patience. So politicians should try to be patient with one another, with the country, with the system, and try to make good of it, and try to make it good as well. So these are things that we have learned from him. No matter how bad the situation is, don't give up. Even if you feel like giving up, try to rise up again.
Another thing that one may want to draw, Mr. Aliu, is, the selection of people that have to be around you. That we recall the former president having to call security, the heads of security apparatus to his office like more than once to tell them to deal with the insecurity in the country at the time. And in fact, there are even cases that some people said that some things happened. You heard, you may have heard our previous speaker say that some of the decisions that were taken, or some of the actions that were taken under him, that he himself was not even aware. There were not things that were intended by him, but it happened under, his watch and all. So sometimes it raises questions about the kind of people that leaders must surround themselves with, and some that will creep in without the leader knowing. It's usual, at the end of the day, as Mr. General Babangida had said, whatever decision taken under him was his responsibility, right or wrong, Mr. Aliu.
But it is true, and unfortunately, as a leader, there are certain things that, yes, you might not know when it happens because the things are just too many. And there are also people that are attached to the office. And there are people that follow the office. Whoever is there, they were there when Obasanjo was around. They were there when Aradua, Goodluck Jonathan, you know, all of them. So and now they're also there when Tinubu is around. So these are things that you cannot do away with the office, unfortunately, and it happens all over the world, But then, if you have the good intention, these are the infractions that people should also look and forgive our leaders, when they do things unintentionally. Like as human beings, you are not infallible, and then as human beings, you could do something by mistake. But I don't think there's any leader whatsoever, that will do anything deliberate to hurt his people. No leader will do that, certainly. So yeah, but then at the same time, just like what you said, IBB said, whatever happens, the buck stops on your table. So you bear the consequences and the responsibilities. So, I mean, this is also a lesson to us. We should understand that, look, we should not aspire to become leaders if we're not able to deal with these consequences. Because, yeah, of course, you will ask for forgiveness and so on. There are still some that will not forgive you, unfortunately. But in our own religion, if you forgive, God will also give you reward and forgive you for somebody else's sin. So, but then there are, of course, so many people that were hurt, when Buhari was around. Yeah, but you cannot govern and say that everybody, whatever you do, everybody agrees with what you've done. But then God works with intention. What's on your mind? So at the time you're taking a decision, were you doing it for the good of the people? God knows. If you're doing it for personal interest, God knows also. So uh, I think people should think before you go into leadership. Are you willing to live with this kind of thing? Because you could even be alive, leave office, then things will start coming back to you. I should have done this way, I should have done that way, and so on and so forth. So people should think that, look, ultimately there is death. And when you die, when one dies, it is just between you and your God Almighty. So, we that are in position of leadership, or we want to be leaders, we should be careful that there will be an end to all these things. Death is inevitable. So life is transient. Whatever situation you find yourself now, you are a president, you are a governor, you are what you are, death will come to you. In this country, we lost Murtala Mohammed, we lost Shana Khan, we lost Shagari, we lost Abacha. Now we've lost Buhari. So those in authority today, someday, one day, they will also die. So they should take this as a lesson. And look, if you look at social media, you will find there are so many people that are raining insults, on the president, late president. It's unfortunate. So the leaders that are alive today should take lessons from these kind of things. There are some that will never forgive you. So even because of those ones, try to do the best you can.
Well, there is so much to say, Mr. Aliu. I'm pretty sure that we'll take this on some other time. Thank you so much for your time this morning. Farouk Aliu is former minority leader, House of Representatives. I appreciate your time this morning.
Thank you.